afternoon, good evening, or good morning from wherever you're joining us from today. My name's Sarah and I'm the Program and Event Manager at the Reactor in Sydney, Australia. Welcome to a Microsoft Reactor live stream event. Today will be our second Little Learns episode with Regional Cloud Advocate Renee Noble. Today's topic will be Azure Cognitive Services for language translation in web apps. Firstly, a bit of background on Renee for whoever's joining us for the first time today. Renee is a self-proclaimed Jane of all trades. She's worked in government, ML, and Python backend, full stack in the ed tech startup sector, and dabbles with embedded tech. Sorry, Renee, I think I can hear something in the background there.
Interesting. I had my mic on mute, so I'm not sure how. Well, I'll sort that out. Well, yeah, you keep doing the introduction.
Thank you very much. I thought I wasn't going crazy. Anyways, I'll keep going. So in her spare time as well, Renee leads the Girls Programming Network for women and girls to realize their potential as techies. She's also started a business to help bring exciting coding opportunities to kids and teachers. So today's session will be an hour with about 10 to 15 minutes for questions within that hour. However, do ask us questions throughout in the Q&A and we'll try and answer as many as possible. We'll also share with you a link to our feedback survey, and it'll come with the event code if you have time to fill that out. That would be great. And at the end of this session, if there's anything you missed or like to reference back after the demos, you can do so on our YouTube channel straight after today, and we'll share with you the link. But without further ado, I hand the floor over to Renee to begin. So thanks, Renee, and over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. I'm hoping you can hear me now and that the audio settings haven't gone awry. Super excited to be here today to share my little project I've called the Pen Pal project with you. I've had a really fun time putting this together. We're following one of the Learn pathways. It's super easy to follow along. It's all there on Microsoft Learn for you to do. And this is actually one of the workshops put together for student ambassadors to deliver themselves. And yeah, so if you're a student ambassador or hopeful student ambassador, watch along. At the end, I'll cover some, any questions you have about how you can present this yourself. But this is all on Azure Cognitive Services, and it's super fun and easy to use language translation services. Way more easy than I thought it was going to be, and it's super amazing. So yeah, lovely to have you here in the chat. Let us know where you're joining us from in the world. Thank you, Balaji, for telling us that you're feeling excited for the session. I'm also very excited to share this with you. I've put my own little spin on this project. So you have the links if you want them to follow along the same workflow I'm following. You can jump on either the GitHub Reactor, the Reactor GitHub, which has all the links. It also on my personal site, Little Learns, for episode. It's under episode 3 because I had to postpone episode 1. So you can scroll on down and grab that link if you want to follow along and grab the code as you go. And it will be super fun. Yes, people joining from Bangalore. Love people joining from Bangalore. Hello. So today I'm hoping you've come with Visual Studio Code installed if you want to follow along throughout with the Python 3 extension. And you'll need an Azure account, at least an Azure student account or something that has a subscription on it. So today we're going to be covering how to set up a Flask server. So we're going to make a little website with a Flask server. We're going to talk a bit about Flask as well. And we're going to learn how to use Flask to build a form and do some get and post requests. And then we're going to use Azure Translation Service to translate some text that we're going to get from the form. So that's going to be fun. And yeah, it's a really easy way to get a website up that does something really quite interesting. So we're going to start off with an introduction to the topic, and then we're going to get into how to set up your dev environment, some Flask fundamentals if you haven't used Flask before. And then we're going to get onto the translation services to integrate it with the app for creating in Flask. And at the end, if you have any questions and you're a hopeful student presenter, do stick around and I'll answer them. If you have any questions about the code we're doing and putting together throughout, please, post something in the chat and I will try and get to it mid-session so we can answer it in context. So first up, creating a web application with artificial intelligence doesn't need to be that involved, or it doesn't need to have that much code, and you don't need to create it all from scratch. So in this world, like in this project, we're going to create a website that can translate text for the user. So I've put my own flavor on it, where we're going to be translating pen pal correspondence so we can email it to our friends. So to get this up and running, we're going to need something lightweight for the front end. We just want to get a little website up that's going to allow us to also integrate with our back end and use Azure to make this all come to life. So we don't want to have to jump through a lot of hoops. So that's why we're going to be using Flask, which is a framework that's going to give us all of these features. And it's a really lightweight, what we call micro framework, that gives us just the core services required, like routing and templating, that'll allow us to make our website and then integrate it with our backend services on Azure. So and we're not going to cover the deployment of that today, but if you are interested in that, you can jump on my website, and we've covered that in Web App Essentials. So it's in the past series, and there's, I think episode 2, we get into how to deploy your own web app. So you can jump on if you do want to make this and deploy it yourself and you haven't done that before. There's also links at the end on how you can do that yourself. But yes, so today we're going to be using Flask to create a lightweight UI to make our little pen pal project. And it's going to be super easy. Flask is a really great micro framework that's just got those bits and pieces we need to get it up without going into too much detail and not needing to know too much about frameworks and the servers generally. So first up, we want to make sure we have our dev environment set up. So I've done a little bit of mine beforehand because you don't want that to go wrong and then not to be able to do the whole thing, but actually it's really easy. Of course, I already had Visual Studio Code installed on the website. There is a link to what's listed as the pre-work where you can see how to install Visual Studio Code. We've also got the Python extension in here. So you can go into here and say Python, and then it will come up with one that I've got installed already by Microsoft IntelliSense. It gives us all the handy things that we need to get going. So that is what we've got to do there. What else is on our list? We need to create the project directory. So you can start a new project by going open and creating a place and going to that location. I thought I had opened a GitHub repository. Here we go. I hope this is the right one. We'll find out. Maybe this is my practice one and it'll give away all the answers. We'll find out in a second because it's not opened itself. Let's go. Okay, we are here. We can just, we're ready to go. We just didn't have any files. So then the next thing is we're going to need to ensure we have a Python virtual environment, and then we're going to need to install Flask and our other libraries. So I'm going to pull up the module we're going to be going through today because it's just all there, and may as well have it there so you can all follow along too if you want to do this at home, whether you're doing it now or you're doing it later. We've talked a little bit about what we're going to do. We've covered that we need these things installed: Python, Visual Studio Code, which is our awesome ID. And so we're going to get our virtual environment set up. So as I said, all of this whole course comes straight from this Learn module, ripped out specifically so people can teach it. So I'm here to demonstrate if anybody else wants to teach it, whether you're a hopeful student ambassador or maybe a MVP, most valuable professional, as we call it in Microsoft, in the making. You can deliver this as well and start helping out the community. So we've got VS Code installed and we have Python also installed as well. And we already have a project because I cloned mine from GitHub, so I can push this straight up after the session with my slight changes if you want to follow along. Okay, so now we need to create a virtual environment. I'm on a Mac machine. You might be on Windows or Linux. So the instructions on how to do that are in here as well. I'm going to go up to the top and I'm going to open a terminal. So I can just do it all from here in my VS Code terminal. So easy. So I'm going to do Python -m venv. So I'm saying I'm going to make a virtual machine that's named venv. So it's going to make that, and we will see in our list of files, we now have a folder called venv, and it's got all the stuff that is basically a little version of Python where we're going to install any things we need for this project. To make it come to life, we do need to do this, which is saying, hey, look in this folder for this activate file and run it. And then we're going to bring it to life We can also see which version of Python we have running by doing Python version, and it will tell us we have to Python 3.9, which is more than 3.6, which is what is required for this. So we've got our virtual environment. We haven't got anything in it yet. If you are doing this from not VS Code, not from the terminal, you'll need to open up VS Code. You can do this from your regular terminal in here. Your regular terminal, and then if you do code dot, it will open up this location in VS Code. But we've already got it open, so we're not going to do that today. So in Visual Studio Code, we want to make a new file. So we're going up here, and we're going to call this one requirements.txt. Okay, and what this is for is writing a list of the things we're going to need for this project. So we're going to just grab it out of here. We're going to need Flask. That's the first thing we're going to be using. Requests is how we're going to make requests back and forth from our website. And also this .env file, we're going to be using it to store our keys, our secret keys. So this is just what we use when we're doing local development. VS Code, I think it's still in the works that it does these kind of features by itself. So I assume it's in the works. I've heard, I've seen some documentation about it. So, but this is how we do it locally, and then we don't need to commit our keys. So when we push it to GitHub, we can forget about this kind of stuff. But for local development, we want to see that happening. Okay, so let's hit save. And now we want to say, hey, pip, which is the Python package manager. We're going to say, please install everything that's in this list. So it's going to run. It's doing all the things. Okay, great. All of our things are installed. So we've done that one now, and we're ready to go. I'm going to change to the next slide. But we've got some stuff about Flask to talk about. So Flask Fundamentals. So we're going to talk about routes, templates, and Python in our lovely micro framework that we have going here. As soon as I can find my notes. Okay, so Flask is an open source web micro framework. Ooh, made the colors go weird. Okay, and when we're the creators of it, use the term micro framework. They mean that the framework will perform the required task of web framework, but it doesn't include any like advanced features or other specific requirements that your application must follow to work correctly. So it's super lightweight. You don't have to do all that boilerplate structure that you might do if you had a larger code base that you wanted to deploy for a whole bunch of people. So this approach allows Flask to be extremely flexible and perfect for use as a front end and existing backends of APIs like Cognitive Services. So we'll talk about templates in a minute. It throws up your templates, so it makes your HTML, chucks that out so people can see it, and you can do a bunch of Python on the back end. So when creating a web application with any framework, there are a couple of core components we need to understand. That's routing, methods, and templating, and we're going to talk just a little bit about all of that. So when a user uses a web app, maybe on a mobile phone or anything, what they get what they want by using URLs, even if they don't know that they're doing it. So that might be by typing URL into your web browser, or it might be by clicking a button that calls on that URL. That's behind the scenes work. And any kind of thing like that. That's how the web works. It's a bunch of URLs making requests back and forth to give you what you want to get you where you need to go. So basically we have a bunch of different URLs here, and these we can have a look at these, and we don't actually need to care about the front part. So these ones are for adventureworks.com, and that's handled kind of by the internet. They get you to the right place, and what we need to take care of on our server is these parts. So we've got just the slash, which is for the main page. So when you got .com/, that's just go to the main page. Then you might have products widget. So that's saying in this bunch of products we have on the site, I want to look at the widget. So you need to route to the appropriate widget. And then you have your cart maybe, and you have by. So you want to make sure people are routed to the correct page associated with their own personal cart of things that they want to purchase. A route is basically just a path to an action. So similarly to tapping on a button in a mobile app, a route indicates the action that the user wants to perform. So we have those associations. Every button will have a route associated with it, or part of the URL, which will give us, take us to the right place. And on our server side, we'll execute the right code in the end. So we need to take care of that route and that function that is corresponding to it on our server backend. So yeah, when we think about writing the code, that's what we're going to be focusing on. What goes with URL, which URL to perform a particular action that our users have just requested. Okay, so when we do those requests, using those URLs to get to our server to get to the right route, we have a few different options for methods or verbs, as you might say. But yeah, the proper name is methods. So yeah, routes can be accessed in many ways through what are known as methods or verbs. And yeah, the two we're going to really be talking about today is get and post. There's a bunch of other ones, but these are the two most frequently talked about ones. Also mention that once again in the Code to Cloud Web App Essential series, we talk heaps about get and post requests if you want to learn more. But yeah, we'll do a very lightweight version of it today because we don't need to know too much about them to get it working. But basically, these methods are how the route is accessed and provides a little context about the state of the user request and what action the user wants to perform. So basically, if we have a get, it typically indicates that the user is requesting information, while a post indicates that the user needs to give us some information. And in either cases, it's not just about either they want to get something or they want to give something. They are always making the request, and then they might be the get request, and they might need to provide a little bit of information. So you're kind of like a form. You'll be like, oh, I need to say my name and address or whatever to get the right information for me. And then you get that information back, matching those query parameters you've put in. Or with the post request, you might get something back saying, oh yeah, we received your package and that was great. Or we received your package and we did this great thing that you wanted us to do with it. So those are the two analogies I think of. A form and then a package where you ship someone a whole bunch of data and then you get something back from it to be like either, great, we got your data, or great, we got your data and we did a really cool thing with it and you can have it back now. So basically a common application flow that uses both get and post requests typically revolve around a form. So not like a form on paper like this one up here, but a form where you might need to put in your username or your credit card number or your personal details, etc. So one in a website. So let's say we want to create an application, for instance, like signing up to a mailing list. The user would make a get request to get to the page that has the form on it. Be like, hey, can you get me the form page? Then the user completes the form with all their details, their email address, their name, etc. And then they make a post request back to the server being like, hey, here's all my data, do something with it. Then the server will send something back, probably a success message saying, we got your details okay, we're doing something with them. And you might get directed to a new page that has that message on it. Or potentially you stay on the same page and it's like in the background goes, yep, it all worked, and it doesn't throw a big error. So you might suspect that the user doesn't actually have to do these get and post requests themselves, because it's actually all just controlled by the website and all the code that you write around the form and the server and things. Because when we fill in a form to join a mailing list, no one's being like, oh, would I like to make a get or a post request today? And if you choose the wrong one, it all goes skew-if. It just handles all of that for you. So that's pretty much all we need to know, I think, about get and post requests. And yeah, let's move on. But yeah, here's kind of that flow just visualized. So we get the GET request. It goes to the server from the client, i.e. you using a website. And then the server's like, oh, here have the web page that looks like a form. Oh, cool. I'll fill in the form and I'll hit send and it will make a post request. And then the server sends you back some more HTML and a status basically that says, it's all okay. We got your data. So here is the code from the final project. And just wanted to point out that we have 2 routes that are on the / domain. So it would just be like mywebsite.com /, so the home page. One is a GET request and one is a post request. So it accepts GET requests. The other one accepts post requests. So this means that we can have the same route from please get us the form to please submit the form. And one will be like, please get us the form. And then the other will be, please post the form. And it will know which one to choose based on that. And it will give us a different template, either the index template, which is normally what we call the home page, or the results HTML, which will have all of your translated text in it. Okay. So templates, as I was just saying, we had 2 things being returned, index.html, which is always the same. We've got our form and it doesn't have anything in it. It's always the same. But we also have our results.html and we have some data to add to it. And that's what we want to put into it before we send the HTML off. So this is a very basic example of a template which says, make a heading that says welcome name. And it's where we just have this placeholder where you can, when you call it, you can give it a name variable and it will slot that in. So if I called the function like this one, render template, and then that template name with name equals Renee, then when the HTML gets sent away, we'll say welcome Renee, and then on my computer it would have a heading that says welcome Renee. So that's all processed on the back end, and then it can send you the correct HTML to match your circumstance. So yes, this is all in HTML, which is the language used to structure the information on the web. So it looks like this. It's got all these tags, and then you basically use them to give the context of this is a heading, or this goes before this, and this is, this is grouped together and things like that. So we have all these different kinds of tags, and we also have other things that come together to make the web for us, like cascading style sheets, or more commonly known as CSS, which are used to manage style and making it pretty, basically layout. So, oh, I don't want these 2 images like this. I want them next to each other and things like that. So if we want to make our page dynamic based on the backend, for instance, if I go to my Facebook profile, it doesn't have the same thing as your Facebook profile. We need to populate all of that HTML with these, fill these placeholders before we send it off. Yeah, that's enough about templates, I think. So basically, it's kind of like a mail merge if you've done one of those. I hear that's like an old school reference now, but I'm not too old, so I think a lot of people will get it. Slot in all that information that you want. So because this is based on the Learn module, we have a couple of knowledge checks along the way. People really enjoyed these last week. They all got on them in the chat. So let's ask the first one. Flask is a framework for building web apps in which of the following languages? A, Python and Node.js. B, Python and Java. C, Python only. Do answer it in the chat. If I was in real life, I'd throw out chocolates for people, giving it a red hot go. But, you can just have the pride of having tried and possibly getting it right. So do chuck them in the chat. We've got people saying A, and C. Interesting. Cool. Anybody else? We'll reveal the answer. It is, in fact, C, Python only. So that's a really interesting idea because we do handle things that work with the web front, but Flask specifically works with Python. So on the back end, we can get all the data and we can just do a bunch of Python code to it. But it doesn't work with Node.js. It is specifically a Python library, but it does work, to create front ends, which might feature JavaScript. So it could be a little bit confusing like that. Bron would like to change their answer. So that is great work, great contributions from everybody there. So let's start creating our web app. So we're going to start by creating our core application, adding the routes, making some templates, and then finally testing it all out. So let's jump to over here. So we're going to need some more files shortly. Okay, we've talked about Flask. We all did the knowledge check. Let's maybe double check our answers. Here we go. We got the green ticks. So yes, it is Python only because it's specifically, as we installed it using this pip thing, we installed Flask. It is specifically part of Python. Maybe there's a similar thing in Node.js because we got a lot of A's. So I'm interested now. Tell us if you know more about Node.js. I'm not a Node.js developer myself. I am a Python person. Okay, so we're going to create a web app. Starting with the core. Okay, so this is kind of like importing our basic things that we're going to need to make your typical web app. Nothing really special about our web app here today. It's really a nice basic one to get started with. Okay, so we're going to make a new file. We're going to call it app.py because I normally often call mine server.py, but for this one, if you're going to use the exact commands in here, you're going to need it to be called app.py is what I learnt when I was trying it out. So app.py. That's going to create us a Python file, and we're going to start by importing all of this Flask code to get us all these bits of Flask. So these are just saying, hey, give us Flask, give us the Flask class, give us some things like render template that we'll need, and make us an app. That's what those lines do there. Okay, so we've imported everything. And next up, we're going to create our first route. So this is going to be saying, hey, please get us the form. I would like to see the form now. So when they go to the route, that is / and it is a get request, it's going to say, oh, let's do this index function. So this is a decorator, and it is decorating this function. So it needs to be right above that one and says, okay, run the index function. And the index function always just returns the index template. So given we've just made a thing that wants to return the index template, we're going to need to actually make the index template as well. So in Flask, we use a kind of structure to lay this all out. So what we do is make a folder called templates, plural, and that's where we're going to put all of our templates. So Flask knows to look in there. That's how it works. So first things first, make the template folder, and then we're going to make our index.html file. Okay, we will have a HTML file there. And we're just going to pop this in. I'm going to start with the basic one from this, and I'm going to make it a little fancier version to fit with our pen pal theme. I won't code it all live, but I will make all the code available to you because I had fun. I think it's pretty cute. But first, we're going to test the application before I go and add things that, could maybe break it. Who knows? But I will pop this in Diff Checker. I like to, so that way we can have a quick look at the differences. So we'll have a look at that in a minute. But back to here, we've created this, made the file, we saved the file, and then we are going to run this. So we're going to set this Flask environment variable, just saying, hey, please have this in development mode. Run that, that's in there. And now we can say run Flask. And this one doesn't work if you didn't call it Flask, didn't call it app.py. So don't call it server.py if you're going to run it from here. Oh, it didn't work. Interesting. It's already in use because I'm running it on another one from my practice one. Let's find that one and kill it, because otherwise I'm going to have to add the code to make this run it on a different port. The default port that it automatically runs on, which we haven't overridden, is 5000. So you can override it, and I often have multiple things running. Here we go. But here we go. We've got port 5000 on localhost here. So it says localhost 5000 here. It same here as this one here, 127,001, 5,000. That's the equivalent. And then we have this. We can type text in it. We can choose languages. So this one has just a few language options specified in it, but there's actually like tons of different language options. So we've just said, hey, we've got English, Italian, Japanese. It takes the value, this is the label, and then it will return to the back end when the form is submitted, English, Italian, Japanese. Those are the codes that it needs to go into Azure. Balaji, does Jupyter Notes also run on Python Lang? Yes, it does. It does run on Python Lang. We can even, just for fun, open a Jupyter Notebook. Actually, I'll leave that because I'll get distracted because I love it. But you should join me in the Code Garden on Tuesdays. We've just finished the series for this month, but we'll be back next month. There'll be more details about that. We do use Jupyter Notebooks a lot because it's really handy. Followed instructions on Windows and I get Flask command and not found. That is an interesting one. Make sure that you have your virtual environment running because, yeah, sometimes getting your dev environment set up can be tricky. And, yeah, so make sure you've done the previous commands to get that all set up and that you're running it from within your virtual environment. So I've got all my code set up. Oh, Bronze got a solution, Python module Flask run. Perfect. That works. Excellent. Love it. Love it when we find a workaround because that's what a lot of development's about a lot of the time. Okay, so we've got that working. Let's make it a little bit fancier just for fun. Okay, and I'm going to grab my code that I put together. So I'm just going to change the order a little bit. So right now, where is it? Here we are. So we've got our big text field here. We've got our language and our translate. I actually just want to move this Japanese box language above it and translate right next to that one. So we just make a short version of this box, just less wide, and translate right next to it because I want to put an image behind here to make it a bit more pen pally. So I've got a typewriter image actually that I'm going to slot in behind it. But let's have a look at Diff Checker just to see what I'm doing first. So this is basically saying, hey, I just want to reorder the text, the fields in the text fields. So we're going to put this one, these two at the top. These are the submit button and the language buttons. It's kind of hard to see exactly what it's doing because it kind of just goes, oh, some of them have gone down, some of them have gone up. But we've just switched the orders of those. And I've said, write a letter to your pen pal in your own language rather than just having the message about this being a translation service. I've also added a style sheet, a CSS file, which I'll copy over now too. That's not where we're going. We're going over here. Okay. We'll make also, setting up our nice structure. We're going to go static. So let's make sure that's where I've put the file. We have put in static. Great. Okay, static. In static, we're going to make a new file called style.css. I'm also going to pop in my picture in there. So I'm going to copy this picture from my secret other project. I've got a typewriter, which I think will be pretty cute. And I'm just going to pop in my CSS and then briefly explain what it does. But basically, I just want to get this picture. I want to make it really big because I want it to look like we're writing on the piece of paper. And I'm just changing some of the colors and the padding just so it all gets lined up. And then so that our text box doesn't be fully white on top of it so we can see the paper behind it. So that's what we're basically doing. Oh, I'm going to set the font to be something fun as well. So some cursive font, make it nice and big. And we've set the picture to typewriter.jpg. It's just in the same folder as the CSS file. So we get that and that'll work. And I just want to make sure that we've actually included our pretty font. Either way, it will do cursive if we haven't included it. So it should all be in there actually. So we've got our Google font somewhere here. Maybe. Let's hope it's there. Okay, so now let's run it again. I'm just going to stop this running. Sometimes it seems to restart. all the stuff, but sometimes it doesn't. I'm not quite sure. So I'll just stop it each time just to be safe. Okay, let's go back here and see how it's gone. Did I not save something? I did save everything, I swear. Templates. I didn't actually paste in my new code. So I just put it into our Diff Checker, I think. Let's try it. There we go. Now we can type in here. It might be, hello, Jack. How are you? I look forward to my visit to Rome of Renee. Okay. So then we go to Italian. Okay, and then we would hit translate, and then it goes method not allowed because we've only implemented the part that says, please give me the form. And we need to move on to our next part. But we've got that all working. So let's jump back to our slides and do our knowledge check. Who remembers what the default port that Flask uses for service HTTP requests is? Anybody? We've got 80, 5000, and 8080. Anybody? Yes, thank you, Alexander the Great. That's a great answer. The answer is, in fact, 5,000. Yep, thank you, Bron. Thank you everyone for participating in my quiz time. Excellent. Oh, we've got another one. And what subdirectory should the Ginger template files be stored by default? Anybody? Templates, static, HTML. A, B, C. What do you think? Anybody? Anybody got an answer for this one? Alexander also says A again. A from Bron. Okay, we've got some good answers coming in. Templates, excellent. Okay, it is in fact templates. Great work, team. Okay, so we're on to our language translation part now. So we've got the front part all working. And let's out on the cool part now. Well, I thought some of it was cool. I thought some of it was, the picture was pretty cool, but I think this part's going to be even cooler. So while solutions using machine learning or artificial intelligence have become increasingly common, it can still be difficult to create from scratch. But fortunately, you don't have to do it all yourself anymore because there's a bunch of solutions already built, and we can access this like we would any API, application programming interface. If you forget what that is, like I often forget. This approach allows us to focus on our code, like the server we just put up, rather than complex machine learning models, which can take a long time. And we all know that languages are hard enough for people. So imagine having to try and teach a computer. Let's just make Microsoft Azure do that for us. We don't need to do that. We've got a website to make this really cute with a little typewriter picture. So we'll make Azure do all of that. Another team at Microsoft has to build it. I get to make fun projects and hang out with you guys online. Okay, so Azure provides a set of offerings called Cognitive Services, which include services for computer vision, speech to text, text to speech, and text translation. So you can access any of these via software developer kits or software developer toolkits. So something like you might import into Python and then have those functions available, or by making an HTTP request to an endpoint. So we'll be setting up HTTP endpoints in Azure today. To use Cognitive Services, you'll need to sign up for an Azure account. If you're new to Azure, you can also sign up for free, and that'll get you $200 credit for the first 30 days. And if you're a student, you can enroll on Azure for Students, which includes $100 to use across 12 months and a host of other free stuff that you get, which is really cool. The model that you are using today, there's two different ways to use Azure translation services, and this one does have a free cap, so you can get a number of requests for free as a student at least, which is really cool. So translation service is part of Cognitive Services, as I said, and will translate to and from dozens of different languages, and it can automatically detect the source language and can translate to multiple target languages all in one call. So if I said, here's my message. I want to send the same thing to my friend in Japan and to my friend in Italy. It could do both of those at the same time for me, which is cool. But our form's just going to get us to do the one and then return one version of that today. And yeah, so we're going to be working out how to set up the HTTP endpoint in Azure and then how to assemble something that will make a request to the right URL from our server when we submit the form. So we'll be using the Python request library that we imported at the start in our requirements.txt file when we pip installed it. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to need to talk about keys as well. So I'm going to start. Let's mention the keys before we actually, no, let's go set it up so we have a minute while it deploys. So we're going to go to Azure. Let's get Azure out here so we can run it next to our information. Love to have the answers right there. Okay, so we did these tests. We'll just do them because then we can be completionists. And templates. That's our answers. Okay. Cool. Continue. Translation. Talked about that. And key management is the way we're going to have our secret values that allow us to access our translation service kept secret without having everyone else be able to use it and then rack up cost on our Azure account. So we want to have these kept secret, which we're going to set up in a second. But we'll come back to that information in just a second while our thing deploys. So I'm going to go to create a resource in the Azure portal. And what I want to create is the translator. So I'm going to search for translator. Translator, there we are. Click on that one. We scroll down, we've found it. We're going to create that one. And then we're going to go in my Azure for Students subscription. I'm going to make a new resource group called Pen Pal live. Okay. I am in Australia East and Pen Pal live and then my initials. Whoop, didn't mean to click that. Okay. Okay, so because I've got another one running, it doesn't give me the free option, but you can have the free option. It will be right at the top. I'll select on my pay-as-you-go one. Okay, so we're going to go to review and create. We didn't need any other special settings. Okay, cool. We're going to create that. And then while that's deploying, we're going to talk about keys. So as I mentioned, we're going to need our keys to access this resource that we're setting up. So we're going to be able to say, hey, here's my URL on Azure and my key to get in. Let's make a request and say, say that I want to translate this text to Japanese. So we need to make the URL, but we also need to include the key to say, yes, I have access to this account. I have the secret key and, I'm allowed in. Other people, you're not allowed in, and you're not allowed to cost me money on Azure to set this up or eat up my free plan to do it. So the key is basically similar to a password. Anyone who has it can use the service, and we don't want to get that big bill if someone else just wants to, write a million letters to their million pen pals around the world. So they're not allowed in. So one great solution for protecting the key when doing development is to use the library python.env, which we also included in our requirements.txt. As I said, we'd be putting all our secrets in there. And when you do it you deploy it to the real internets, instead of just doing it locally, you don't need to commit that file to GitHub. In fact, please don't commit it to GitHub. That's just putting your secret keys onto the internet. And it's not very good practice. If it's public GitHub, also it's super bad practice because anyone could just pick that up and steal it. And it's still not great practice even if you have a private repository. So don't do that. And probably don't show your keys in a live stream, in fact, if you were to do that, if you're going to run this session. So I'll lead by example and not show my secret keys on this today, even though I'll take mine right down at the end of the session probably. Maybe leave it up so people can have a little play. Actually, it's not going to be deployed live, so you won't be able to do it. So yeah, at the end of the session, my keys won't be useful anymore if you do get a sneak peek. Okay, so to store our secret keys, we're going to create a file called .env, like the symbol dot and then env. Don't forget to not write the word dot, because that's how I messed up occasionally. And we're not going to put this in a GitHub, so we can write this file name into our git ignore, saying, never ask me to put this up so you don't accidentally publish it to the world. So, yay, our thing is deployed. So we're going to go to the resource, and I'm going to pop this on this side. Meanwhile, I'm going to make a new file called .env. So just the symbol dot and then environment variable. Okay, so next up, we are going to go into keys and endpoints. So we can see a bunch of information here. Here are our secret keys. If I show keys, then we'll all be able to see it. But we're not going to do that. We also have the location, which we're going to need, and we're going to need one of these Azure endpoints. So we're going to use the top one here. Okay, so let's work out the format that we need to put these in. So we've reviewed, we've created, we've gone to this position. Some of these images have changed since this Learn module was made, but you can see me do all of them today. So what we're going to put in our .env file is this format, and we're going to replace all the things on the right-hand side of the equals with information from here. So we're going to grab our location, copy that, we're going to replace that here. We're going to grab the text translation, we're going to pop that in endpoint, and then I'm going to copy this one, and then I'm going to, as I said, be secretive, not share it, and let you all look at my horrible desktop instead while I put that in, and then change files so you can't see it anymore. Okay, so you just have to believe me that I put it in. I promise I did. And then we are going to, have something that looks like this. So in our Python file, we're going to be using the .env library to load this into our computer, into our running program, so we have access to these things. But if you're doing this, deploying this actually on Azure, then you can put these in as environment variables. So this is just a way of loading them up as environment variables within the scope of our program. So now we've done that, we can go on to the next part. So let's go and make our app file have a few more things in it. So we're going to go here, import requests, a bunch of stuff. I'm going to put them right at the top, just because you typically have these native Python things imported first before you have other libraries imported. So we'll put them right at the top. Okay, then we're going to grab this code. Whoop. Could you use the translation service to translate text on a website? Look, if you wanted to scrape the website and get all of the text out of it, then yeah, you could chuck it all into the translation service for sure. So if you have your own website, absolutely you could do that. If you were like, I can't read these other ones, then you could just scrape it all and put it into the thing as well. So I'm just going to paste all of this, and then I'm going to quickly talk through it. Okay, so what we have here is a bunch of code, but actually a lot of it's just very boilerplate. So what we're saying here is, hey, when you get the post request, get the text to send to the pen pal out. That's under the request of the form text, and then also get the language out. Then using the .env library, we've already loaded in these endpoints and keys, so you can get them out as well. Then we're going to start building a URL to make that HTTP request. So we're saying, okay, this is the path that we need to go to on Azure. And then we need to add in the target language, which is what we got out of the form. And then we add it to the endpoint as well. I think I've just remembered we need to actually add HTTPS to the start of our thing. So I'm going to pop back into my file here. I'm going to move it off because it has my secret keys. But at the start, you need to have HTTPS of your endpoint. Otherwise, it doesn't work. which is how I learned that the hard way to save you all having to learn it. So, oh, it does have that now. Great. Okay, maybe because I didn't click copy when I did my preparation. Who knows? So we've got that. Then we set up these headers, which has all these different bits of information about your location and your key. And then we pass in the one thing that we really want to pass in is that text in your native language so it can get translated. And then this is all the magic special stuff. It says, hey, make a post request using the URL we made, the headers we made, and that body, which contains the original text, and then give us back. Then we're going to get a response, get the JSON out, and then just find the first translation and get the text for that, which will tell you what what the new language version of it is. And then chuck that all into this other template, which we're about to create, and you're going to pop out that translated text and the original text as well, so we can see what it was and the language that we've put it into. So we've got that. Now we just need to go down and create the template. So I'm going to copy this as well. This one's going to go into a file called results.html in this templates folder as well. We pop that in there. We save that. We should save our other server file as well. Okay, and now we're ready to test. So let's go back and let's hit translate. Ooh, we haven't rerun the code. I think that's probably why it's angry, maybe. Let's rerun the code. Stop that. Hopefully this one runs. Ooh, interesting. App raised an import error. Why has this happened? I'm just going to go and I feel like I saw this issue. Oh, it might be to do with and there's different ways of getting it out. So maybe this way doesn't work on Mac. Yes. So endpoint, let's double check. Let's go into Diff Checker and we can see actually what we're doing when I compare what we have going on here to what actually worked from my preparation. So that way you can all make it work at home as well. Because yeah, sometimes there's just something a little bit tricky and then we can see. Interesting. That's just all the same. That's just my extra print statement. Maybe it just needs to be run again. I feel like I think we just needed to tell it the place to get it, maybe. We maybe got upset about that. So let's say, where did load happen? I'm going to say, get it from a specific file. This helps you out, I'm glad. Get that one line, pop it in here. But also maybe it just wanted to be run again. Oh no. Interesting. Come on, you want to do it. Let's just see if this one, my pre-prepared earlier one, works. Oh, why is it not happy today? Very strange. We're in our virtual environment while importing app and import error was raised. But it's not telling us what the error is. Why would you betray me like this? Visual Studio. Did I do pip install? We did do pip install. Let's do it again for good measure. What do we have? Pip install -r requirements.txt. This is what I would normally do if something wasn't working. Let's give it another run. Oh no, it doesn't like us. I couldn't tell you why. It's got everything. It's not telling us what the import error is. Have we saved everything? I've even popped in all of my text. I have to say it doesn't have the dot at the top. Good question, Bron, though. I do often forget to save things if you watched other things. So why is it not liking us? Let's do Bron's trick from earlier, which is just to run Python, run this Python file, Python -m, and then we're going to have app.py. I think was what we wanted. Nope. Right. Interesting. Instead of doesn't want the pi. Well, it's printing out my key now. So you've all seen that now. Excellent. From me testing out how to get the key earlier. Anyway, don't remember that. Don't look back at that. I will get rid of it after the stream. From Flask import. Should it be from Flask import Flask? No, it's the uppercase. It's the getting the class version, which is used here. So why doesn't it like us? Anyway, here's one I prepared earlier, which will hopefully not also betray me because we want to see the translation thing because it's really cool. We don't want to hit run. But now you've seen my other key, which is good. Why have I done this like this? I've put all my keys there for the world to see. I could have printed out anything else from the end file. But anyway, okay, let's run that function. Flask run. This one works. Okay, let's now go back to our other place, which we're now running on the same code. And now here we go. Okay, hello Jack, how are you? Is now ciao Jack. Come stay. I can't speak Italian, so I'm going to give up now, but can see that it's clearly in Italian and it's done that translation for us. So that's pretty cool. So I'm going to wrap it up there and then go and work out why on earth the thing hates me, even though I have the exact same code. So very interesting. But we've, done all that. We've made all that, and we have a knowledge check, which I had trouble with myself. If anyone wants to have a guess, I'll give you a quick chance to tell me what the HTTP header that carries the API keys is called in Azure Cognitive Services. Bonus extra marks if you managed to pick this one up. I kind of glossed over it in the code because there was a bunch of code to go through. Thank you, Bron. Thanks for pretending it didn't happen. Excellent. It's, classic software development life. I'm like, this worked great in the practice. And I even popped in the code from the practice and it simply won't run. So we'll one day know maybe why that happened. I'll work out what happened so I can pop it up on GitHub so you can all download it if you want to have your own version of a cute little typewriter version. We've got A's, B's, and C's coming in. Actually, it's going to go to Bron with B. It's going to be the subscription key. And Shiv Kant has also got it right there. So that was a tricky one. I actually didn't know when I went through the slides myself. I was like, I don't even remember making headers because we just copied that out because it just looks how it does. So thank you all for giving it a guess. And some of you got it right, which I did not get on my first attempt. So I hope you've enjoyed this session on how to make your own Flask web app that does translation, which is really easy. The translation part was actually the fastest part. It was just those 3 lines of code once we had the information we wanted to pop in, and we just had to set up Azure to get it all running. So that was super awesome. Okay, so we've learned all about Python and Flask and the micro framework that is Flask, and it's really easy to get your app working. Apparently not easy to run your finished version, but we did see that it did work with our initial version. So can't tell you what happened in the end, but maybe, I'll post on Twitter why on earth it didn't work. And we got Azure Translation Services to work as well. So if you want to get the links to do this, these are the same slides I had at the start with the link to the Reactor GitHub, where you can see this workshop as well as the other Little Learns workshops, and you can get all the resources. And also, if you want to go to my personal site, it has the resources there as well. The Reactor site has a bunch of other resources from other cloud advocates like myself around the world, have a really cool team. So go on there and check them out as well. And you can see other ones by me specifically on my personal website. Coming up, we have a few cool events. Next week, we've got the Reactor community. Be a mentor to your Imagine Cup World Finals. for the APAC winner. So there's 3 finalists going into the Imagine Cup finals where they'll win $100,000. These are uni students who've made amazing projects, and we want to go and support and mentor the APAC finalists. So if you want to come along, be part of the team's call and give them support, hear their 3-minute pitch on their amazing dysgraphia and dysnumeria app that helps kids with number comprehension, and then give them feedback on how to awesomely present themselves so they can hopefully win and represent us as the APAC winner. Next month, I've got an introduction to, it's called Getting Started, an introduction to Git for girls, women, and gender diverse coders. So it's a safe space if you've been afraid to learn Git. I'll be running an introductory workshop on how to get started. I haven't just developed a New Zealand accent, so we're getting started. I'm also starting a new stream series called the Uni Student Experience. I'm going to talk to my first uni student. This is Victor. Coming up next month, he's going to talk us through an awesome project he's done using also cognitive services or bot services to make an awesome thing that basically generates an FAQ from unstructured data. It's really cool. And also I'm running again, keeping going with my awesome In the Code Garden series. It's my new favorite series where I get to just teach you introduction to a bunch of stuff. If you want to learn Jupyter Notebooks, come to this. We use that a bunch. I'll be covering introduction to data structures in Python. So we've got lists, tuples, sets, and dictionaries, and neat tricks to do with those. We've just wrapped up on Intro to Python if you want to go back and watch those. So we had loops and if statements and variables and input if you want to get started with Python. Other than that, we're going to have a few minutes if any uni students want to deliver this workshop themselves and have any questions to ask, and then we'll let you all go. If you're not a uni student, then you're also free to go, or you can leave at any time because it's a live stream and you're at your house and you're in charge. Sarah might pop in and tell us about surveys and cool stuff.
Yes, popping in to just give everyone another minute if they have any last questions, if you're a student. And Renee's kindly mentioned all of the upcoming events and all the links there to the other series. You can check out all of those other events on the Reactor City meetup page, which is this last link that I've added here. And all the remaining links are just up scattered throughout the chat. And we do have the survey link as well with the event code 15905 for today. If you have a time to fill that out, that would be awesome. We'll just see if there are any more questions. Oh, it was just Bron. Not just Bron, but Bron saying that was wonderful.
We love Bron. Thank you, Bron. First ever real Python. Oh, amazing. Yeah, come along to Code Garden. We've got heaps more Python stuff, all the hot tips on like how to process data and make all kinds of stuff. So hope to see you there and everyone else's, of course. Yeah. If you do want to teach this, all the material I used are here on this link. That you can get the slides, you can get the links to the Learn module and any other helpful stuff. The slides don't have all the pretty pictures that I added, but you can add your own pretty pictures. Yeah.
Great. Well, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you, everyone, for engaging in the chat today. And thank you to Renee again. Great stream as always. And thank you, Jack, as well. Always there with some great feedback. So have a good rest of your afternoon, evening, or morning. We'll see you next week for another Microsoft Reactor live stream event.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.